Hey y'all, and welcome to PolitiBrawl. My name is Brian, and Kash Patel is just running circles around Dick Durbin, who at this point in his career should know better than to ask these ridiculous questions. Let's dive in.
Director Patel, FBI agents pledge their loyalty to the Constitution of the United States, not you personally. What is the basis for requiring polygraph exams of your workforce and asking them if they've made negative comments about you?
I don't know what reports you're referring to, Ranking Member, and I reject any reporting that has false information in it, so I'm not going to respond to that. As far as polygraphs go, generally they are always and always have been utilized at the FBI to track down those that leak sensitive information and have unauthorized disclosures to the media, and we will continue to use them to ensure the integrity of the FBI.
Did any individual on your senior executive team, the director's advisory team, or who serve in the positions on the 7th floor receive disqualifying alerts on their polygraphs?
Senator, I'm not going to get into the personnel discussions that were had on a polygraph. Those are private discussions, and many of them relate to ongoing investigations.
Did you or Attorney General Bondi provide any individual with a waiver so they could remain employed after they received disqualifying alerts on their polygraphs?
I'll have to get back to you.
You don't remember that?
No, sir. My priority is protecting the American public, not getting into the weeds of polygraphs.
And to have a decent memory when you come before a committee.
I'm happy to talk about all the good work the men and women of the FBI are doing, including provided the lowest crime rate in American history. If you want to talk about how to protect the citizens, Chicago has seen a 30% reduction in its murder rate because of the men and women of the FBI.
You take credit for that?
I'll happily do that. The interagency partners and the men and women of the Chicago PD have never been more powerful.
Include local law enforcement, please.
Have you ever seen my testimony across this country where I always lead with our interagency partnerships with state and local law enforcement? It is the pillar of what I am doing. And on the 7th floor, for the first time in FBI history, I have installed police officers and sheriffs right on my 7th floor to report to us every day what's going around the country on the street level, because that is a priority of the FBI and is the only way we are going to work. I don't take credit for anything, but I will defend the men and women of the FBI and the cops that help us get it done.
You should. In response to the blowback she received, Attorney General Bondi also pushed the FBI to review approximately 100,000 Epstein-related records on an arbitrarily short deadline in March, and the FBI was directed to flag any documents that mentioned President Trump. Nothing came of that review until July, when DOJ and FBI released an unsigned memorandum stating there is no incriminating client list. Why was this July 7th memorandum unsigned?
Would you prefer I've used AutoPen?
Why was it unsigned?
The memorandum had the insignia of the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And in our effort to secure transparency for the American people, because the 3 prior administrations had not done so, we conducted an exhaustive search of everything related to the Epstein cases, and we produced what was legally and permissibly able to be produced to Congress and the American public.
So
and there's a congressional subpoena, and we're continuing to do so.
Did you personally direct that investigation so that you would sign such a...
Did I personally direct what investigation?
Of the Epstein records for any reference to President Trump?
Again, you are citing reporting that I think is baseless. We conducted an investigation of the Epstein case files pursuant to the direction of the President of the administration to provide all credible information, and we are working with Congress pursuant to a congressional subpoena to turn over all the documents we can. All individuals.
Who at DOJ and FBI was responsible for its drafting and conclusions?
Many individuals at the Department of Justice and the FBI are responsible.
There was no lead person?
The Attorney General leads the Department of Justice, and I lead the FBI.
So the Attorney General was responsible for that?
The Attorney General leads the Department of Justice.
Director Patel, much like you, Deputy Director Dan Bongino was a conspiracy theorist who built a lucrative career making inflammatory and unsubstantiated statements about the FBI that would be disqualifying in any administration that cared about nonpartisan law enforcement. For instance, Mr. Bongino called the placement of pipe bombs outside the DNC and RNC headquarters on January 6, quote, an inside job, and went on to say this was a setup. I have zero doubt, and whoever goes into the FBI, you better get an answer about why. Director Patel, you and Deputy Director Bongino are now leading the FBI. What is the evidence to suggest the pipe bombs placed outside of the DNC and RNC on January 6 were an inside job?
I appreciate the opportunity to discuss Director Bongino's mind record. So many on this committee and the media jettison our 31 years of public service.
Can you answer the question, sir?
I'm answering the question. You're questioning the integrity of the Deputy Director of the
Asking
FBI
you
and mine.
if you found any
and I'm going to
evidence.
answer the question.
I'm
The pipe
asking-
bomb investigation is ongoing, and I'm not going to discuss the
Ongoing?
details of the pipe bomb investigation. Mr. Bongino was a Secret Service agent for 15 years, a police officer for 5. I served this country in multiple administrations for 16 years. We were also private citizens, and we are now back in government service. And what we have the ability to do is set aside our personal beliefs to deliver the mission of justice for this country, and we're doing it day in and day out. And I find it disgusting that everyone and anyone would jettison our 31 years of combined experience that is now at the helm of the FBI, delivering historic results at historic speeds for the American people.
Are you sure you want the consequences of that statement, Dick Durbin? Of course he does. He wants to fundraise off of this as much as he possibly can. He wants to dig in his heels and dig in at the Trump administration to the best of his abilities, and this is really the best he can do right now. The Democrat Party is trying its best to deflect and deny the very fact that under the Biden administration and then under the Obama administration, the deep state grew by exponential amounts. And when I say the deep state, I am quite literally talking about the idea of the federal bureaucracy, both the good kind that, manages the national parks, manages the Forest Service, the people that also will tell you where to farm and where you can't farm, and whether something is a U.S. waterway or not. The kind of bureaucratic scoldings that say, you can't do that because of this environmental piece of legislation that never got passed into law. Not to mention the other side of that coin, which is the CIA and the FBI that does all the dirty work that we don't like to talk about in our own homes. We don't like admitting the fact that this stuff exists. The FBI and the CIA has done some very shady and often very evil things, and the mission statement of these organizations is quite literally, keep America safe. That's great. To what extent? Well, what a surprise. Fed Chair Jerome Powell has just fueled hopes for a rate cut, and of course the price of gold moved higher. Safe haven assets like gold and silver tend to get higher when rates are cut. And that's exactly why I have partnered with the award-winning company Goldco. They sell precious metals like gold and silver, and they do an amazing job with it because they keep it simple. So if you are ready to learn how Goldco can help protect your savings with gold and silver, I want you to go to PolitiBrawlGold.com. You can get a free 2025 gold and silver kit. Plus, you can learn how to get a 10% back on silver for free. It's literally the best silver offer on the market. So don't miss this one. That's PolitiBrawlGold.com. Again, visit PolitiBrawlGold.com to protect your savings. And in order to actually investigate some of these actions, in order to actually look into it, you are going to need not months-long, but years-long investigations. And Dick Durbin understands this. He's been in politics for forever. I think he was a lawyer at one time. So he knows how this all works. So why is he trying to dig in at Kash Patel as much as he possibly can? It's because it's the only card that he has to play. Okay? He has if he says, you know what, I'm just going to let this stuff roll under the bridge. I'm going to let this pass over. I'm just going to listen to what he has to say and not ask any of these ridiculous questions. No, he can't afford to do that in this political climate. The entirety of the Democrat Party is based on the idea of resistance. Instead of, hey, maybe we can help with the reforming process. You'd think that the very party that was so critical of George W. and even Herbert Walker Bush of being a little too chummy with their CIA buddies, you'd think that they would do a little bit better job of actually dealing with the deep state until you realize that the majority of federal bureaucrats vote Democrat. So the question is, why? Why is that a thing? Why is there this weird marriage between the Democrat Party, which used to have this resistance, punk, anarchic left current running through it, and now they've aligned with MAGA? What happened? Well, the moment that Barack Obama got into office, they realized they could push the envelope. They realized they didn't need this part of the party anymore. They thought they had a coalition that would last generations. It would last just a couple of election cycles. And the Democrat Party realized bet on the wrong horse. Because the American people, now that we have this really cool thing called the internet, can go out there and actually search for these things, can look up information for ourselves, and all of a sudden what we're finding, it ain't great. We're starting to look around and realize maybe our FBI and CIA do things that are just ungodly and unwholesome. Yes, that's a part of their mission statement, but it's good to question this. It is good to reform this. It's also a major part of the American spirit to go out there and say, hey, I'm questioning the authority here. After all, after the framers and founders started these United States, it only took a couple of generations for that coalition to immediately break apart. As a matter of fact, the origin of the Democrat Party is from the breakdown of the sort of first political, what's the right word? Coalition's not the right word here. Sort of the old ruling class. There we go. The old ruling class of the early United States got kicked out of power when Andrew Jackson started really gaining traction with voters across what would become the Midwest and the American South. And that's when the small-time farmer was actually making a ton of money, and they were kept out of the political process. Well, they backed Andrew Jackson, the original populist, and things got better for the most part for the American people. All because the American voters had the wherewithal to question the current authority because the current system wasn't working as well as they'd like. And it kind of worked. There were some ugly things that happened under that administration, but I'm merely using that as an example. I'm using that as an example to say what happens when the current ruling class gets a little too big for its britches and forgets that they need to serve the American people with some transparency or they're going to get kicked out of power. And Dick Durbin realizes this, and you have two options. You can either listen and let someone else primary you and likely win at that case and at that rate, or you can make it look like you're fighting tooth and nail to resist President Trump. I truly do not envy their position, but maybe they'd be in a better position if they had bothered to reform things in the first place. They have bet on the wrong horse here, and Kash Patel just has this look of, oh, good grief, you know better. That's the look that's on his face throughout this entire exchange, and that's because Dick Durbin does know better. He just doesn't have anything better to do. That is a sad reality of this situation. Investigations take time, and we aren't even finished with the first year of the Trump presidency. I want to see where this goes. Meanwhile, Dick Durbin wants results now, and I don't think he's going to like those results. But that's what I think. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. My name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on PolitiBrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Till then, y'all have a good one.